$1,300. That's the extra amount each American family is shelling out just to buy cars and household goods thanks to an old but ridiculously expensive weapon tariffs. In early 2025, Trump took the stage, finger-pointed, threatening Canada. If you don't sign a fair deal, we'll slap a 50 to 100% tariff on your cars. This wasn't the first time. Earlier, he imposed a 25% tariff on Canadian cars, only to then delay it by 90 days to negotiate. But after those 90 days, no deal. Canada refused to budge on U.S. demands over digital taxes for tech giants like Google and Amazon and the management system for Canadian agricultural products. In the end, Trump declared the talks a failure and reinstated the tariffs immediately. The result? The 25% tariff on Canadian cars remains, plus an extra 50% tariff on steel and aluminum. Instead of striking a digital trade deal or resolving issues on steel, aluminum, and agriculture, the U.S. and Canada are now locked in a prolonged tariff war with neither side willing to back down. For years, the U.S. and Canada have been strategic partners with the U.S., needing Canadian supplies like car parts, steel, and aluminum, while Canada depends on the U.S. market for export. But with these tariffs, this relationship is now under threat, severely impacting supply chains and jobs in both countries. Ford and Stellantis, two giants in the auto industry, have had to temporarily shut down some production lines in Ontario. Stellantis reported a $5 billion loss in the most recent quarter, mainly due to soaring parts costs and reduced demand. Compared to 2024, the company recorded a $2.7 billion loss during the same period. Ford is warning of at least a $1.5 billion loss due to the tariffs. Just last year, in 2024, Ford faced around $850 million in losses from tariffs and rising costs, but it gets worse. Ford is forecasting a $5.5 billion loss in its electric vehicle and software sectors for 2025. This is on par with the previous year, as the company continues to struggle with adjusting costs and investment strategies. With such heavy tariffs in place, experts predict that car sales between the U.S. and Canada could drop by as much as 1.8 million vehicles in 2025 compared to 2024, totaling around 17 million vehicles if the trade war escalates. This is a massive blow to the auto industry, a sector that employs millions across both nations. It's not just cars. The steel industry is also taking a massive hit from the tariffs. Canada exports 91% of its steel to the U.S., and with a 50% tariff on steel, nearly 1,000 Canadian steel workers lost their jobs in just a few months. Industrial towns like Sault Ste. Are facing a harsh reality, post-industrial, as the economy shifts from manufacturing to services and tech. This has led to a sharp decline in traditional industries like steel, costing thousands of jobs and dragging down the economy in these regions. So, who really ends up paying for these tariff decisions? The answer is the consumers. In Canada, U.S. car sales have dropped by as much as 30% at dealerships in Ontario and Quebec. While there hasn't been a strong backlash, consumers have quietly started buying Korean cars, European cars, and even considering Chinese cars if the tariffs aren't lifted. In the U.S., each family is now paying an extra $1,300 per year just to cover the increased cost of cars and household goods. According to the Center for Automotive Research, this is the direct result of tariffs on goods imported from partner countries, including cars. Trump promised to revive U.S. manufacturing, but instead of building a new industrial base, his tariff policy is creating a tax wall around old factories and destroying the supply chains that have been finely tuned over decades. Canada will certainly suffer greatly, but the U.S. will feel the long-term effects more. They're losing their second-largest car market, the global supply chain that's been optimized for decades, and most importantly, the trust of the workforce. With unions warning that modernization plans could be canceled due to a tariff threat, frankly, Canada should be the 51st state. Okay, it really should, because Canada relies entirely on the United States. We don't rely on Canada. After a series of threats against his Canadian allies, ranging from 50% tariffs on steel and aluminum to suspending trade negotiations. Trump recently made his true intentions clear during a live television appearance. He wants to turn Canada into a star on the American flag. Trump is no stranger to using crude political pressure and shocking statements, turning political events into a stage where he publicly humiliates a G7 ally. The pinnacle of this spectacle came with his proposal to protect Canada under the Golden Dome missile defense system. Back in May, in a rare moment of self-proclaimed generosity, Trump extended an olive branch to his northern neighbor, offering to shelter Canada under the Golden Dome system he so dreams of. The price? An astounding $61 billion. But wait, there was an easier, more enticing special offer. It won't cost a dime if they become the 51st state, which we would cherish. And for extra drama, he threw in a psychological jab. They're considering the offer. Let's break down this absurd act. The $61 billion isn't a business proposal. It's a calculated insult, designed to be completely unpalatable. It's a blatant message to Canada that their sovereignty is a luxury they can't afford. National security, once a sacred area of cooperation for decades, is suddenly reduced to a cheap bargaining chip, putting Canada in the humiliating position of a colony begging for protection. Worse yet, the phrase "they're considering the offer" is a sneaky attack, an overt attempt to sow doubt and division within Canadian society, creating a false reality to undermine the authority of the Ottawa government. While Trump paints a picture of a greater America with 51 states, the American people, the very ones he claims to represent, strongly oppose the idea of turning a neighbor into a colony. Polls show a stark truth. Americans don't want to subjugate an ally, turning a neighbor into a subordinate. Therefore, Trump's actions aren't just a betrayal of Canada. They're a betrayal of the values of friendship and respect that most Americans hold dear. And, of course, the Canadian people feel the same. They aren't willing to trade their history, culture, and independence for a spot beneath the flag of someone who has publicly humiliated them. After months of being cornered by public ultimatums on the same theme, the Canadian government had no choice but to abandon soft diplomacy and make a firm declaration, clearly drawing a red line on national sovereignty. Recently, at the NATO summit in the Netherlands, Carney was asked whether Trump still wanted to annex Canada, and Prime Minister Carney calmly responded he doesn't want to. This wasn't naivety but a deliberate de-escalation tactic. By doing so, Carney stripped Trump of any excuse to escalate further, refusing to engage in the mudslinging match Trump had set up. More importantly, he set a moral trap, publicly placing Trump in the position of being reasonable. If Trump continued his attacks, he would expose himself as erratic and aggressive in front of the entire world. It was a display of a composed leader, using the opponent's own absurdity as a weapon to expose him. But Canada's resistance didn't stop with words. Beneath the surface of the shouting matches lies a two-tiered strategy, the most decisive and clever move quietly unfolding. While the public focuses on sensational headlines, the Carney government is aggressively executing Plan B, diversifying its economy to break free from reliance on its unpredictable neighbor. Strengthening trade agreements with the European Union (EU) and the Comprehensive and Progressive Agreement for Trans-Pacific Partnership (CPTP) isn't a panic reaction. It's the execution of a plan prepared for the worst-case scenario. Canada is playing a long game. They are willing to take the short-term economic blows from Trump, but their ultimate goal is to win the war by reshaping the global economic landscape in their favor. In the end, this chess game may not have a clear winner, just immeasurable losses. In his effort to turn Canada into a vassal, Trump may have inadvertently created a more independent and assertive competitor. Trump wanted a new star on the flag, but instead he pushed his most loyal ally into the arms of other partners, forcing them to sharpen their skills on the global stage. Elon Musk just dropped a tweet that shook Capitol Hill to its core. He called Trump's new budget bill an abomination, a stain on history, and political suicide. No, he's not talking about a Netflix flop. This is a real law that could make electric vehicles $7,500 more expensive and set America back a decade. And if you think this only affects Elon, congrats. You're about to foot the bill. Elon Musk, who once shook hands with Trump for the cameras, is now on X, blasting Trump's tax bill as crazier than launching a microwave into orbit. For extra spice, he points out it'll balloon the federal deficit by $350 trillion over the next decade. Yep, $3.5 trillion. That's enough to buy Twitter 3 times over, and still have a few $100 billion left for universal health care if you lived in Europe. But we're in America, where instead of investing in education or infrastructure, we're talking about taxing EES and handing out candy to big oil. Elon may be rich, but this time he's not clueless. So why is Elon going nuclear? It's not just his love for the planet. The bill kills the $7,500 tax credit for EV buyers starting in 2026 and slaps an annual punishment fee on anyone daring to drive a car that doesn't spew toxic fumes. Result: Tesla's stock is tanking like a rocket out of fuel, and investors are staring at the bottom line. Tesla made $49 million in profit, but rad in $595 million from selling emissions credits. In other words, Tesla's been cashing in on other companies need to buy their morality with cold, hard cash. No tax credit =, fewer EV buyers =, fewer emissions offset =, Tesla losing its easiest revenue stream. Worse, estimates suggest this policy could slash U.S. EV sales by about 317,000 vehicles a year, a direct gut punch to demand. It's not just the U.S. either. Things are getting dicey in China. In March 2025, Tesla sold 78,828 vehicles there, down 5% year over year. Why? Rivals like Bit and Jelly are getting fat government subsidies to speed up, and Beijing's hinting at retaliating against American companies. Tesla's Shanghai Gigafactory. It's standing right in the wolf's jaws. Think Elon's the only one taking a hit? Sorry. But regular folks are the real victims. Starting in 2026, buying an EV could cost you an extra $7,500 to $10,000. Just because the government thinks it's unfair, you're not polluting. Plus, you'll get hit with an annual fee for daring to skip the gas pump. It's not just new cars. Even fixing an old EV will hurt your wallet. Imported EV parts will face higher tariffs because Trump wants to protect traditional oil industries. So, you're getting slapped twice, when you buy and when you repair. It gets worse. Small businesses that switch to electric delivery trucks to save money. They'll see vehicle prices spike and operating costs soar, which means higher prices for essentials. That bottle of milk, that loaf of bread, it's all getting pricier just because the delivery truck isn't chugging diesel. And if EV sales tank, factories will scale back. Tesla employs over 120,000 people. Ford, GM, and Rivian aren't far behind. Guess who's first to lose their job when orders dry up? Not the CEO, not the shareholders. It's the assembly workers, engineers, and logistics folk. The people who actually keep things running. Oh, and that $5 trillion deficit Elon warned about. That's coming out of your pocket through higher taxes or slashed social programs. The government won't be knocking on Elon's door for cash. They'll be at yours. While the EU and China race toward a green future, we're stuck revving internal combustion engines. One policy step backward, one giant slide for the economy and the climate. This bill slashes EV incentives, rewards big oil, and penalizes clean energy choices, dragging America back to 1955. Crafted by Republican senators who think climate change is a joke, Musk, once Trump's advisor, distanced himself after being ousted from DOJ in late 2024. This bill was the final straw. Trump hit back, telling senators to follow the party, not the billionaire. The Musk-Trump bond snapped like a Cybertruck wing in a storm, 3%. That's the small number that ignited a trade firestorm, exposing the complete emptiness of Donald Trump. With just a 3% tax on digital revenue, Canada threatened to pull $2 billion out of the pockets of U.S. tech giants, only to be met with a rant, "Stupid." Make no mistake, Canada didn't start this. The 3% digital services tax was a necessary response after enduring Trump's ridiculous tariffs on steel and aluminum. It was Canada's counterpunch directly targeting America's prize tech giants, Trump's cherished darlings. Even though Canada later officially canned the plan, the real damage to America had already been done. And just the mere threat of this tax revealed the truth about the so-called master negotiator. He panicked, fumbled, and reacted like a cornered animal rather than a skilled diplomat. Earlier, after Canada decided to implement the digital services tax, Trump quickly fired back with shocking remarks. It's not going to work out well for Canada. They were foolish to do it. This isn't the language of a leader. It's the tone of someone with a poor vocabulary resorting to insults. Stupid. That's Trump's reflex when the other side doesn't kneel. He blamed Canada for daring to implement the digital services tax, a legitimate self-defense move, all while ignoring the fact that he was the one who lit the match in this trade war. Trump swung his tariff stick at steel, aluminum, and a whole range of Canadian products, spreading chaos. Canada is now the largest supplier of aluminum and steel to the U.S. Starting in June, the U.S. raised tariffs on aluminum and steel imports to 50%. But when Canada retaliated with a reasonable and fitting digital services tax, Trump called them stupid. This is cowardice disguised as anger, a tantrum from someone who can't accept defeat. Meanwhile, Trump's rage and the anger of his capitalist buddies were predictable. Scott Bessent, U.S. Treasury Secretary, don't like the taxes, and obviously we think it's patently unfair to do it retroact. The digital services tax targets the one thing they actually care about, profit. Let's call it what it is. This 3% tax isn't a punishment. It's an overdue action to restore fairness. For years, giants like Google, Meta, and Amazon have been exploiting Canadian user data, raking in billions with almost no contribution to the local economy. Now, when Canada asks them to give a little back, they scream unfair. The real question isn't whether retroactive taxes are fair, but why the injustice of these corporations being tax-free for so long was tolerated in the first place. Trump turned everything into chaos. Businesses didn't know which products would be taxed next. Customers stopped spending, suppliers halted orders, and jobs were left hanging. This is exactly what happened. While Trump gleefully taps away on Truth Social, Canadian and even U.S. businesses struggle in the mess he created. If Trump is a child randomly pulling levers to see what blows up, Carney is the engineer carefully adjusting the machine. Michael Gist, an economic expert, warns, "We are going ahead even while we're negotiating was a risky move." And to the extent to which we thought maybe the U.S. was bluffing, we've learned that they're not. They thought a few threats would make Canada back down, but Canada didn't play by Trump's rules. They called out his scam. While the U.S. flaunted its power, Canada kept negotiating and making wise decisions both domestically and internationally. It was a clear statement. We won't be bullied. The U.S.'s response? More of Trump's threats making headlines. It's the familiar script of someone who can only solve problems with a hammer. America burns down its own house and then sues its neighbor for putting out the fire too slowly. This is the height of absurdity. The current president is a master of coming soon promises. Deals almost done, always in the future tense. He stands at G7 summits, shaking hands and smiling in front of cameras, making promises about deals. A few weeks later, those promises end up in the political trash bin alongside other broken ones. His words float away with the wind. Meanwhile, Carney and the Canadian government are working behind the scenes, quietly making America squirm. No tweets, no drama, just action. The Canadians didn't just survive Trump's tariff storm, they've come out stronger. That's irrefutable proof. While one side makes headlines, the other builds prosperity. One leaves with tweets, the other with results. The KI truck ban in 19 U.S. Street 8 reveals a dark side. AMVA, a shady nonprofit organization, is partnering with state DMVs using questionable data to strip away the legal ownership of these vehicles. How is it that a non-transparent, unaccountable organization can collude with public agencies to decide the fate of thousands of vehicles? To put it simply, K-trucks or Katura in Japanese are ultra-compact vehicles with engine sizes typically around 660 cc, just slightly larger than scooters. They were designed for cramped urban spaces and small-scale transport needs in Japan. Not only are they affordable to operate, but they also serve a variety of functions like agriculture, delivery, and small repair services. Americans, particularly those looking for practical solutions, have fallen in love with them because of their versatility and super low prices, ranging from $5,000 to $10,000, cheaper than replacing a side mirror on a Tesla. So, how did they get into the US? The importation of K-trucks became possible thanks to the 25-year rule, part of the 1988 Imported Vehicle Safety Compliance Act. This rule, originally championed by European luxury car manufacturers to combat the gray market, inadvertently opened the door for vehicles older than 25 years to be imported without meeting current U.S. safety and emissions standards.